Similarly to how DC Comics has their own live-action version of an ocean-type character, water-based character, Marvel is doing the same, bringing in theirs, adding in their own MCU interpretation of Namor, even though a lot of people aren't fans of how they changed bits and pieces about his lore and such. He's narratively supposed to be one of the strongest beings on the planet Earth of the MCU. Let's get into it. MCU Namor is over 400 years old. This is the time period he was actually born.
My people turned to Jack, our god of rain and abundance. Jack led him to a plant sprouting from a blue rock. My mother was pregnant with me at the time. They all fell sick. The plant took away their ability to breathe air, but enabled them to draw oxygen from the sea.
I mean, when it comes to why he's strong and such, how he was born the way he is, you notice how they have blue skin, you notice how he looks normalish. Kind of, sort of. It's because unlike the other beings that are ocean dweller type beings, he can breathe on land and the water.
The women that were gardeners, they had water over their mouths and on their necks. He didn't have that.
Just absorbs the oxygen from his skin.
Here, they can explain it.
My mother gave birth to me there, and I became the firstborn son of Talocan. The plant gave me wings on my ankles and ears that pointed to the clouds. I was a mutant. I could swim in the sky and age slower. Breathe the air our ancestors breathed.
I mean, he literally just explained it for me. That's the reason why he can fly. And similarly to the people of Wakanda, Namor's people also have vibranium gear. So apparently that vibranium meteor that struck the Earth thousands of years ago, made of the strongest substance in the universe, it apparently struck Africa, landed in Wakanda, affecting the plant life and stuff, affecting their civilization. Apparently there's a piece that apparently fell into the ocean. That's how Namor's civilization thrived in a weird way under the water. Because all the weapons, the armor you see these beings wear, all this stuff is technically vibranium.
Vibranium, he's covered in it.
So when it comes to his physiology, without even just talking about his vibranium gear, armor and stuff.
You can go down there in that. Hypothermia will grieve you almost instantaneously. Your blood will become toxic, and the pressure of the ocean will break every bone in your body.
You can almost assume anything his kin can do, he can do better, honestly. And I'm talking about every attribute. Physical strength, durability, blah, blah, blah. Just like his people, it's no surprise that Namor can ride sea creatures if he wants to. There's implications Namor has to have a healing factor because his people have decent healing factors. Even when vibranium stuff stabs, these different beings, like it looks like literal lethal blows. And we see these beings she literally just stabbed, get right up like nothing happened. So yeah, they gotta heal fast. The writers of the movie said he can heal fast.
Can we rip the wings off? Because they grow back, so it'll be fine.
It's even talked about how blows that should have killed him, they got back up. This right here isn't Namor, but I'm pretty sure if this being can rip a door off a helicopter, Namor can too. But we've seen him actually physically toss literal helicopters with his muscle. I mean, look how he uses a spear here and throws this big Wakandan vehicle that probably weighed over 10 tons or 20 tons or whatever. Like, it's not a small vehicle. And he's tossing this kind of stuff around. I don't know how he gets leverage from his wings this good, but it's implied he can lift these ships with his muscle while in the air. For the most part, in raw muscle, I think we all could agree that Namor is astronomically stronger than Super Soldier Tears when it comes to muscle. I mean, it's really up to your interpretation. I'm not really trying to get in a debate who you physically think is stronger, Black Panther or Captain America of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but regardless of who you think is stronger than who, in raw muscle, I'm not counting vibranium. Obviously, vibranium Black Panther can cut anybody, but I'm talking about like with muscle, class with Captain America, they've shown to be similar in Super Soldier Tear-esque type strength. And if Super Soldier Tears can freaking stop helicopters, what the heck do you think Namor can do? When his muscle has literally been compared to the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Hulk.
And it's potentially as strong as the Hulk.
We haven't seen MCU Namor and the Hulk fight, so yeah, you're probably thinking it was just a statement. The only reason I believe this statement is because the MCU and the Marvel comics are two separate things, but the whole point of live action is to bring the comics to life to some degree. Obviously, there's differences here and there, but if you know anything about the comics, Namor has occasions that shows his muscle being able to hang toe-to-toe with the Hulk. And if he's fully hydrated under the water and such, he can even get wins over titanly strong beings like the Hulk. Obviously, I know this is live action and this is not the comics, but if they're using that same concept from the comics of Namor being a brute powerhouse being with the Hulk and stuff in the MCU, that statement with M'Baku seems to kind of make sense. And you kind of should take it seriously. Now, if the comics didn't exist, I'll be like, okay, that's just a statement. But like, we know the comics exist. We know certain characters rival each other in comics. They translate some of that stuff over to movies. You see what I mean? You put two and two together, use critical thinking. It makes sense. And if we take this seriously, remember how the Hulk treats Super Soldier Tears? In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm talking about it's an astronomical gap between the Super Soldier Tear and a Hulk level being. Astronomical power gap. if we're to take this serious, and he can really lift close to the weight of the Hulk. And we know Hulk and Thor can match each other's muscles. Like, I'm talking about, they're pretty freaking close in raw muscle. And when it comes to Thor, I did my own personal calculations with this ginormous rock. I came out to be over 500 tons at the least. If we're to take those statements seriously about him being similar to the Hulk, we know the Hulk can match Thor in muscle. We know Thor can lift over 500 tons. That would imply Namor should technically, by default, be able to lift 500 tons as well. Just like the brutes of the MCU. We've seen Thor move these mountainous-sized rings around Nidavellir. It doesn't take rocket science to know this junk is humongous. And Hulkish-like muscle can rival beings' muscle like this. This would imply if Namor was hydrated, he would be able to do something similar. Obviously, this heat right here would mess up Namor. But if he was hydrated, he would be able to move such massive structures, implying that Namor could possibly lift over billions of tons like the MCU powerhouses, if we're assuming he really has the strength of Hulkish Thor-level muscle, not counting Stormbreaker or nothing like that, but like just their muscle. If somebody has the muscle of a Hulkish Thor-level being, beings that can move mountainous-sized structures, how hard do you think they will be able to hit? This is something you should think about when you think about MCU Namor. It's almost guaranteed that his hits will feel like a mountain falling on your face as a bare minimum, at least while he's completely hydrated. I mean, we don't really know if Namor is responsible for this, but you could argue Namor could be responsible for an earthquake under the ocean. In Avengers Endgame, they kind of talked about it.
Reading on those tremors?
It was a mild subduction under the African plate. It's an earthquake under the ocean.
I'm going to get back to his potential punching power in a second, though. Just hold with me for a second. In fact, the characters in the movies understood that there was a gap in power between a heart-shaped herb super soldier tier being and Namor. Because one of their strategies in even fighting Namor was to weaken him, because that's like his only weakness, being dried up.
Evaporation cells activated.
You need a glass of water.
If we're being honest, the only reason Namor didn't one-shot like the Black Panthers, how Hulk does super soldiers, is basically because of this metal known as vibranium that's ridiculously hard and durable. We've seen Captain America's shield withstand hits from Thor to make shockwaves to split tanks. We've seen the shield withstand strikes like this. Vibranium. It's this armor that's covering up these Wakandans, the reason why Namor doesn't just one-shot them. You see what I mean? And then we talk about the fact Namor has his own vibranium spear, so he has gear on top of his ridiculous strength. So he's already a lot stronger than super soldiers here, but the only way they can kind of stand a chance is if he's dehydrated. You see what I mean? But this is an example of how hard he can hit without even using his spear. He still won't fly that far. Like, just to give you an example of his strength, the weight behind his swings on top of the spear he uses, he has a vibranium spear and he can slice through Wakandan airships that are probably vibranium too. We've seen him slice off wings. Roadhouse, no wings for you. I don't see why they wouldn't make their aircrafts out of vibranium. It's consistently shown for him to slice through these. I could honestly, especially with this vibranium spear, I could honestly totally see him slicing buildings in half, honestly. Characters that are abnormally strong for human beings, he just blocks their attack with ease. This explosion he himself caused on the ship. Keep in mind right here, he's technically weakened and drained of water. And he still survived an explosion like that. You see his durability is pretty decent, even while dehydrated. This explosion he himself caused, Namor's fighting these beings while dehydrated, just to give you an understanding of what he's truly fighting.
A handheld sonic cannon, powerful enough to stop a tank.
Namor's just getting casually hit by this kind of gear from Wakanda and bouncing back after being hit like it ain't even happened. When you see the Wakandan tech do stuff like this to Rock, that splattering tank stuff starts to sound more accurate, if we're being honest. Let me give you an example of the weight of his hits even when he's dehydrated without even relying on his spear of vibranium. Slams Shuri with the vibranium suit cracking the ground. Namor seems to like using momentum while flying to increase his punching power. This can kind of give you an idea that he's a good fighter even without relying on his strength. Like, you see the way he fights and you can see the weight behind his hits. Okay, you remember how earlier I brought up how he's dang near close to strong as the Hulk and Thor level beings that can move mountainous-sized structures. Remember that stuff I brought up earlier? Okay, so vibranium is no joke. We know vibranium can actually cut vibranium if you're strong enough, or it can even cut all the way through it if you're strong enough. Like, we've seen vibranium claws, Black Panther claws in the past, scratch Captain America's shield. Do you remember this overpowered sword Thanos had? We know Thanos is a brute powerhouse, muscle-wise. And the weight of Thanos' swings with his sword's durability was able to chop into Captain America's shield. You probably wonder, what does this have to do with Namor? Well, this whole suit is made of dang near indestructible metal, vibranium, the strongest metal in the planet.
I don't follow. What comes out of Wakanda?
The strongest metal on Earth.
Don't get me wrong, I know you can do a lot with vibranium on your own, but Namor was able to pierce all the way through this suit, through Shuri's flesh. which I would consider a feat even when he's drained and dehydrated. What the heck could he have done if he was at full power? So earlier when I said those statements about him being as strong as the Hulk, those statements start to make more sense now that you've seen him pierce all the way through this vibranium armor with a vibranium spear. Like, it's one thing scratching it, like we've seen Black Panther do to Captain America's shield, but it's one thing to pierce all the way through it. While drained and dehydrated, might I add. We've seen the weight of MCU Hulk punch gods like Thor and actually give him a nosebleed and punch Thor so hard to where he starts seeing flashes before his eyes. This is impressive because Thor's durability is crazy enough to be right next to a city-shattering explosion, way worse than nuclear bombs. And this statement about Namor apparently being as strong as the Hulk, that would imply if Namor was in that same situation, he would be able to shatter the entire city like Sokovia, similar to what MCU Thor did. If we assume while he's hydrated, he could be up there with Hulk and Thor's tears when it comes to the weight of their hits. But then if we add in his vibranium spear with his muscle, this just makes this way easier with the amount of weight behind his piercing stabs. This is assuming he's fully hydrated to assume he could do something like this, of course. Implying Thor can do this to Sokovia, Hulk can do this to Sokovia when it comes to punching power, and the same should go for a fully hydrated Namor. Since we know that Hulk and Thor just barehanded can hit with similar weight, both can cause each other strain when it comes to their muscles clashing. There's other things that Thor has done. Even though Thor has hit the Hulk, he can bounce back from it, vice versa. This technically should apply for Namor if he's in his ballpark of power when it comes to the weight of his hits. This looks like nothing, but Thor actually, during this scene, based on Marvel handbooks, visual dictionaries in the MCU, this feat is a lot more impressive. Thor literally shook the entire ice planetoid itself and it started cracking apart. Now, when it comes to comparing the sizes of these planets, just because somebody shook Jotunheim doesn't necessarily mean they can shake the Earth, but we don't really know the exact size of this planet. Even if we don't, it still should be way more impressive than city shattering, shaking an entire planetoid. And if these two have the power to shake an entire ice planetoid like this, and Namor's supposed to be in their strength league or punching power league somewhere, the weight of his strikes by default being somewhere in their league technically should mean he should be able to do the same. Shaking ice planetoids this large with his hits. Now, this is where we get even spicier. You remember MCU Thanos? Do you remember when he used these Infinity Stones, these infinite power gems? You remember that? And he damaged himself and his arm using these Infinity Stones, right? So he was technically weakened. Like, you can literally see he's scarred in battle damage. There's the superhero known as Captain Marvel, who's really powerful, by the way. Look at Thanos' arm that's weakened. He was starting to overpower her leg. And then this same Thanos, it took like 3 Avengers to restrain him. Like, this girl right here is ridiculously mighty. And despite Thanos' arm being weakened, we start seeing him overpower her leg. You're probably thinking, what does this have to do with Namor? This Titan Thanos has Hulkish type strength durability. We literally see Hulk and Thanos clash in muscle here, for example. And in Raw Muscle, the Russo brothers confirmed that Thanos and Hulk are similar in muscle.
Thanos is the Genghis Khan of the universe. A very skilled fighter, equally as strong, equally as strong, equally as strong.
The only difference between Thanos and Hulk is that Thanos is leagues above him in fighting skill, so it made the fight look one-sided when they're really similar in physical muscle. You're probably wondering why am I bringing that up anyway. Well, someone that's equally as strong as the Hulk was overpowering her leg. Somebody that's strong enough, stated by the actress herself, and there's nothing really contradicting it, an actress that stated she, Captain Marvel the character,
she's so strong. She can move planets. So to me it was like, how far can I go with this strength?
So wouldn't this imply beings like Thanos weakened with Hulk-like strength can overpower beings' legs that can move planets, apparently? If she has the raw power to move planets somehow, Thanos, while weakened, was overpowering her while his arm was jacked up. Wouldn't that imply Thanos' raw power can move planets too? And the directors confirmed these two are similar, so wouldn't that mean the Hulk can also move planets with strength? And then the new Black Panther movie said,
It's potentially as strong as the Hulk.
Wouldn't all this planet-moving power, strength apply for Namor as well? And just in case you think that actress doesn't know what she's talking about, well, there's nothing contradicting her being able to move planets when we've seen her do more impressive things. Like literally having the blast power or energy output to reignite a star in literal seconds. This does not contradict the planet-moving stuff. This is actually more impressive than planet-moving, reigniting a star. It takes more energy to reignite a star than push a planet. Namor should be included in this conversation of planet-moving strength or just punching power, blah, 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 around this range of might. Matter of fact, the power to reignite a star would pretty much be enough energy to bust a planet like Earth, if we're being honest. We haven't necessarily seen Namor actually move a planet, but based on the fact he's somewhere in the same range of power with the powerhouses, he should technically by default have that range of raw muscle if they're really comparing him to the Hulk. Thanos as strong as the Hulk. Captain Marvel was getting her arm overpowered by a weakened Thanos who's got Hulk level strength. You see the idea? You get the critical thinking? You see how it all goes together? So basically, somebody stating you have Hulk-like strength means by default in the MCU, if you have Hulk-like strength, you should be able to move planets with your muscle. Or Hulk-like strength is somebody that can overpower beings like Captain Marvel, somebody that can move planets, they state, somebody that can reignite stars, aka bust planets. Technically, continent shattering, planet shattering, all that stuff should be child's play. And if you're not quite convinced on the earth shattering stuff, or we're talking about smaller planetoids like the moon, he should at the very least be able to hit hard enough to tremble such structures if he's somewhere in the ballpark with the powerhouses of the MCU. Even if you wanted to say he was like 50% of Hulk's strength, even 1% of the Hulk's strength, 1% of the power needed to reignite a star would still be able to do this. Blah, blah, blah. Thor, beings that can shake planetoids, you get the idea. You're probably thinking he ain't that strong because he was struggling with super soldier tears like Black Panther. No, it's because he was dehydrated. This was the equalizer. This is like his kryptonite. If you beat Superman using kryptonite, that doesn't mean you're a planet buster like Superman. That just means you use kryptonite. That's his weakness. That's the thing with Namor. So obviously he has enhanced reflexes. He has insane maneuverability in the air. But we see him deflect attacks. But yeah, it's hard to hit him in the air. This is straight up combat speed. I think it's fair that if you shot a bullet at him, he'd be able to cut the bullet out of the air. If we're being honest, even when his back's turned, we see him dodge stuff. Let's just say Namor can do this, just like super soldiers can do, right? Do you think we'll ever see MCU Namor face off against the powerhouses? Maybe, but do me a favor and hit that like button for me. And thanks for the donations. It helps out a lot. Yeah, MCU Namor's strong when you really dissect them, and do some critical thinking. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.